And they said they saw these strange light streaming rapidly to the southeast. They said they thought about 20 miles east of their position. And they said it stopped and hovered and then disappeared. The pilot had 30,000 hours of flying experience, co-pilot 8,000 hours. Neither one of them said they'd never seen anything like this. And like most pilots, they were reluctant to give me any additional information, did not respond to my follow-up requests. I determined that the flight number was a Southwest Airlines flight, and I did that by the time they gave me and everything. And I wrote a Freedom of Information request to the Federal Aviation Administration for all voice tapes for that particular airline, which is Southwest 188. And I did a radar track of the flight. That flight was going to Reno, and the radar showed that it took off in a southwesterly direction and made a hook up to the northwest, and then went on to Reno. Interestingly enough, the radar data, this is one of the better radar visual reports that I've ever seen, ever looked at. I got data from 2 radar antenna, and they showed blips right in the area, right at the time, right at the same location where the pilots saw these lights, or this light. And there were 4 or 5 blips, both radar antenna synchronized. One radar antenna was in Las Vegas. I'm not exactly sure where the other one was because it's a composite of antennas, but it would have been the long-range antenna, probably out of California. So that, in my mind, really confirms what they saw. And also, it wasn't another aircraft because there were no other transponder returns in that area. And also, their traffic control avoidance system was set at 160 nautical miles. They saw nothing on there that picks up other aircraft. So that's a very interesting case. And if you want to read it, you can go to sighting reports and go to 2010, towards the top, December 26, 2010. You'll see that particular report of pilot and co-pilot see strange light to east while in flight out of Pahrump, Nevada. With that, I'd like to bring on our next guest, who is from Marysville, Washington. And Ron, are you there?
Hello.
Hi, Ron?
Yes.
Yeah, you're on the air. How you doing tonight?
Pretty good. How are you doing tonight?
Great, Ron. And, well, I want you to tell our listeners about your strange sighting. I believe that was June 18th, 2011 in the Marysville, Washington area. I believe Marysville is about 50 miles north of Seattle. And why don't you go ahead and tell people what you saw?
Okay. Well, it was exactly 10:12. I went outside to feed my cat. My cat has intestinal problems, so he has to be fed every couple hours. Anyway, it was 10:12. I went outside to feed him, and I looked up and I saw what I thought was a helicopter, or maybe it was one of those Chinese candles, I thought. But then it was so bright, it was illuminating the bottom of the cloud. It was a cloud-covered night, just getting dark, June 18th, so the sun was up for a long time. Anyway, it was just getting dark. It was illuminating the clouds, and it was just bright, light coming from all around it, a huge halo around it. And it was flowing from a red to a yellow and back and forth. Not really switching, but just flowing. And then right below that, another one came on, and it stayed the bright yellow. It was so bright, it had a huge halo around it. And then to the right of that, another one popped up. And they came towards me. They got about 150 feet from me and stopped. And mind you, they're probably 200 to 300 feet off the ground now. And they're just so bright, light coming from all directions of them. And they're just hovering there. I didn't know what to do. I'm calling for the neighbors and yelling for anybody around. Nobody's around. I ran back in the house, grabbed my binoculars, and ran back out, which was just maybe 12 feet in the house. And so so I start looking at them through my binoculars, see if I can see anything more, and again, all I can see is this huge halo coming off of them. So then they start to climb, and so I'm following them up, and I go a little bit ahead of them to see where they're going, and there is this huge ship that's right directly above me, and I mean, this thing is huge. I'm going to estimate that this thing is probably 200 feet wide by, well, put it this way, the jumbo jet Dreamliner that Boeing has, that great big old plane, I think will fit inside of this craft. That's how big it is.
Wow.
It's just huge.
Amazing.
And it's not making any noise. It's black. The only reason I can see it so well is because the sky is gray, because the clouds above it are gray. And so these lights go up to it, and they all go to this one spot in the back and the bottom of this, what I'm going to call a mothership. And they either go into it or they attach to the bottom, and they all shut off at exactly the same time. And mind you, while these orbs are going up to it, they're illuminating it in this bright yellowish light, and I'm just spellbound. And again, I'm yelling for my neighbors, anybody around, because it's a Saturday night. But again, nobody was around, and like I said, they shut off all at the same time, and then this huge object just hovered for probably 10 or 15 seconds, and then slowly went to the southeast. And after it moved for probably 10 or 15 seconds, it just disappeared. It didn't take off. There was no trail or vapor trail or anything. It just literally disappeared from sight. In less than a blink of an eye, it was gone.
Yeah, that's amazing, and I was telling our listeners, Ron, before you came on, that I think a lot of these UFO, most of them are higher dimensional or other dimensional or parallel universe type phenomena. And from what you just said, I mean, it just disappeared. I mean,
Yes, instantly.
Normal aircraft don't do that. That's for sure.
No.
And
I kind of agree with you, because how else could it have? You can't just, if it would have took off at the speed of light, it would have been a vapor trail or something. So I agree with you. It flipped the switch or something and was instantly gone.
Right. Well, with Ron's case, I was captivated by his report, and again, I asked for data for this particular case from the FAA radar data. Now, where Ron's sighting is quite a ways away from a radar antenna. About 50 nautical miles at Fort Lawton, Washington is the closest antenna. And that, ironically enough, that antenna did pick up some radar blips at 10:11 p.m. right near the area where Ron had his sighting. Now, Ron mentioned it was a cloudy night. Well, the cloud ceiling was really low, about 400 feet, which means
it was higher than that. I think
was
it
it
was
higher than that?
Yes.
How high would you?
About 800 feet.
800, okay. Well, anyhow, that means you could still get a good estimation of the size of this thing just by the low clouds. And then the radar antenna, that it was almost, something that low, below 800 feet, was almost below the radar horizon. So the fact that it would pick anything up that far away means it fairly strong return. And it could have been that big, so to speak, mothership that you saw. And I have this particular report, Ron's report, written up on my site. And if you go to sighting reports and then go to 2011 and page down to June 18th, and then you can click on there and you could look at some maps and some nice sketches that Ron provided, and plus a recording of the interview, his original report. So I encourage listeners to look at that particular report. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Ron?
Well, yeah, I kind of think that those orbs I think they were scanning us. I really do, because two of them just switched on prior to coming to a stop there. It really appeared to me like they were scanning the area, stopped, and then their return ship, mothership, showed up and went up and, like we have robots that go out and inspect things. I think that's probably what they were doing, scanning us for some reason. And by the way, your second return on that one was exactly at 10:15,
right,
which is exactly the time that I looked in my front door and saw the time on my TV cable box, and that shows that 10:15 hit is exactly over my house. I mean, right exactly there.
Yeah, that's pretty compelling because anything that far away at 50 nautical miles that shows up has got to be a pretty, something's there. It's not just what we call a radar angel, and or weather. Weather returns generally happen closer to the radar antenna. I always like to look at radar visual cases farther away from the radar antenna because I know if I see something there, it's compelling. If it's closer to the antenna, there's a lot of other things. I mean, radar can pick up traffic and even waves in the ocean, as the one down at Fort Lawton does. So, yeah, that's quite a case, and that's one of the better cases that I've looked at in 2011. And
one more thing was
sure.
that we live right on the approach to the Arlington Airport. My backyard is directly under the approach, and if you stand in my front yard, you're not under the approach. You stand in my backyard, you're under the approach. That's how low it is. It's probably 2 miles from the airport. So they're coming in at about 300 or 400 feet, 800 feet maximum right at that time. And it's just ironic that, or I guess not ironic, but it was in the path of a plane. Had a plane come in, it was pretty close to being in the path, and there could have been an accident. It was that close to the runway. Nothing came in, but, I mean, it was that close.
Well, that's
the path for the landing
right.
at Arlington.
Well, that's an interesting point because I work with another group that investigates aviation safety related to UFO activity. The case in O'Hare in 2006, and then another case in Orlando, Florida, where objects are close to aircraft and pose a safety hazard, and indeed that has happened. And yes, I mean, something unknown flying around in approach pattern of aircraft, particularly on a night like that where you got a low cloud ceiling, definitely would be a hazard. So,
yes.
Well, Ron, we thank you for your time, and keep watching the skies and keep your camera ready.
Indeed. Thank you for listening to my story.
Okay, Ron, you have a good evening now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Yeah, well, that'll conclude both witnesses, and those are great cases and some of the better ones I've looked at this year. Ironically enough, the Marysville, Washington area, right around there, has been a hotbed of UFO activity this year. Just lots of reports, a few photos, and some videos. And that particular case struck me because I knew the weather. He estimated the clouds were lower. I was going by official aviation observations, but he was right there, so he knows how low the clouds were. And that means that he got a good fix on what he was looking at. And the fact that those small lights or smaller craft, whatever, illuminated the larger craft, it means he could see it, and plus the background of the clouds. Aviation safety is a major thing about investigating UFOs, and when pilots see them and when they interfere with, sometimes they can interfere with the the avionics equipment or the compasses and other things on the craft, VOR and everything, DME, and that's a hazard. I mean, the literature is full of cases, particularly in the Bermuda Triangle, and then I mentioned the O'Hare case. I investigated another aviation case where pilots taken off from Minneapolis and over the Iowa area, Des Moines, Iowa area. They sighted 4 disc-shaped objects, and these objects just stayed out ahead of them, and they never were able to figure out what they were. I guess they never felt like they were endangering their safety, but they definitely tracked them for quite a ways. And I'm trying to recollect, I think that particular case is around 2005 or 2006. And I've also got that particular report on my site, and plus the radar analysis that I did. And well, going to my home page, there's some other cases that I'd like to kind of summarize. And there's a witness out in the Yakima, Washington area. She's recently written a book, which I mentioned her particular report happened in the summer of 2009, and there's a nice photo of a very strange gold object on my site. And a lot of this activity is occurring near the Yakima firing range, which is a major military operations area. Now, of course, people could say, well, that's all military activity. Well, that photograph isn't of anything military that I could think of. And Yakima has been a long history of UFO activity. It's right near the reservation, Toppenish Indian Reservation. And so there's been a lot of activity out there. One of the better old cases that I ever received was from the Yakima area, actually Toppenish, which is south of Yakima. This was in July 4th, I believe it was 76, might have been 77. And this was right before sunset, actually a couple hours before sunset. Sunset's pretty late in Washington State, July, and when they're on daylight time. And there was this disc hovering right over this woman's house, and she saw people in it, very humanoid people, and this thing was just spinning, and all of a sudden it just took off at a horizontal, went like a half mile in just a split second, and then shot straight up in the air. Both her and her sister actually signed affidavits saying that they saw this thing. So what could it be? You know, I mean, some people even think that the remnants of Nazi technology for some of these UFOs. I don't know, but anyhow, all that occurred in the Yakima area, and I've always felt like that was one of the more strange cases. Also from Washington State, this is a Gig Harbor area, which is on the Kitsap Peninsula, west of Seattle, and this person was taking photos of interesting cloud formation, and this strange flying disc shows up. This happened on the 20th of February, 2011, and a very strange looking thing. Looks like a disc on edge, and one of the several photos of flying discs that I've received from Washington State. Many photos taken over Mount Adams, Mount Rainier, Mount St. Helens. And so, you know, that's where this thing all started. The modern wave of UFO sightings was Kenneth Arnold in 1947. Saw the 9 discs between Mount Rainier and Mount Adams. This has taken us up to a commercial break. We'll be back in 2 or 3 minutes. So don't go away. We'll finish out this hour with some more reports, and then top of the next hour, we'll entertain calls and try to answer some communications from the chat room. So anyhow, we'll go to a break and be back in a few minutes. Hi, we have a caller.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Christine. I live in Tacoma, and I left you a message probably about a couple weeks ago, and I'm sorry I left you like 3, one after another. But
I'm sorry I didn't get back to you. I am getting just
okay.
so many reports.
Know.
But go ahead, ma'am. What's your name, ma'am?
Christine. I live in Tacoma, Washington.
Okay, Christine.
And it was the first time I've ever seen one. It was just so visible to me, the graphics of it. But the situation is, me and my daughter really believe that a good percentage of us are just born natural, half human, half aliens. That's what we believe. And my question is this. is I have reoccurring dreams of alien invasions, and either I see the ships themselves, and a lot of them are transparent, but then a lot of them are on the ground, and I always get these people in this vehicle that sits there and says, it's time to go home. And this person will always be in the passenger side starting to morph. And a couple years ago, I woke up and I went to the doctors, and they can't figure out why I have this cut in the back of my neck. And it actually looks like there were stitches at one time. And I asked my parents what it was. I asked my doctor. They have no idea. But these dreams are coming so intensely. And they've been more intense since I seen the craft in the sky. And I don't know what to make of it.
So let me understand, you're having dreams of being on these craft, and then you're physically also seeing these craft when you're conscious. Is that correct?
Yes. And I
and
have these dreams of it. I actually have these dreams too, actually seeing them actually in groups. And they're not just one size, they're like different sizes, like squares and oblongs and rectangles. They're all shapes, sorts of sizes and shapes and colors.
Yeah, that's strange. So you've got a strange cut or mark on the back of your neck, and the doctors can't figure out how you got it. How long you had that?
For about 2 years now.
Okay, so you went to the doctor when you discovered the cut, or you just went to the doctor and he discovered the cut, or she?
No, I discovered it. My daughter was braiding my hair, and she
Oh.
was like, "Mom, what is that on your neck?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" It's like right when you bend your neck forward, it's right there, like at the bone. And my daughter pulled it up, and she took a picture of it too. And it's a straight line, and it's about like 2 inches across, and it actually looks like there was like stitches put into it, and it's just like really thick.
Yeah, that's strange. Could you send me a copy of that photo? Email it to me.
Oh, I sure will.
And a short report, and I'll get back to you. I'm really sorry. There are many people that are calling me, and I'm pretty much a one-person operation here, and but that's a very interesting case, very similar to an earlier case that I don't know whether you listened to the show early on. We had another witness from the Seattle area that's had some repeated abduction experiences. Your case is somewhat similar to that, and certainly worthy of. Yeah, send me a report and a photo, and I'll get back to you. Again, my apologies for my non-response.
Well, thank you. You keep up the good work.
Yeah, thanks for the call, and I look forward to hearing from you.
All right, take care.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
We had a request from the chat room about Ron, the gentleman up in Marysville that saw the large black object and the smaller orbs sending into it. The question is why was he looking ahead of the lights? I don't know if he conveyed that message, but my understanding was he followed the lights, and then the lights went into this craft, and that's why he saw the big black craft. I don't think that he was particularly looking for the black craft. He was just watching these lights, and then all of a sudden they go up and into this one area, and they go in the back of this craft. So that's my understanding, and what Ron was trying to convey. So hopefully that answers your question. That's my understanding of it. Well, do we have any other calls or messages here? Okay. No other calls. Okay. Well, we can entertain more calls now, or I'll start talking about some other cases. Okay, looks like you can call the number toll free 888 888-919-2355. Again, that's 888-919-2355. Well, talking to Christine in Tacoma there, her experience is not unlike Ollie's experience, who called in earlier, one of the witnesses. And, she expressed some frustration in mine being non-responsive, and I don't blame her. That's just part of, I don't make any money doing this, and I'm a retired meteorologist. I was a scientist for the federal government for 30 years. I've been retired for 4 years. But even at that, trying to do this in my spare time, I managed to stay pretty busy. Certainly takes up a lot of time, and I've got many, many cases that I really want to look into further, and definitely her case is one of those. Looks like we have another call. Area code 832. Go ahead, sir, or ma'am, whoever.
Yes, sir. I was trucking all around the country this past year, and I'm a truck, still a truck driver right now. And I was working on 48 states, running all over the country. And I had a very strange experience over in Nebraska in July the 20th.
Is that 2011, sir?
Yeah, I just wanted to privately get in touch with you, maybe by email.
Sure.
Where can I find your email address?
Well, just go to UFOs Northwest and go to report sighting, and my email is on that report sighting page. There's many ways to get a hold of me.
Okay, I'll look into that and I'll get in touch with you.
Yeah, I'd like to hear about you. Just be sure you define the date, the time, and the location, and specifically what you saw, and if you got any photos or any other evidence, send that to me.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Thanks for your call, sir. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, again, that phone number is 888-919-2355. And anyone else that care to call, or if you care to go to the chat room and leave us a note, and we'll try to respond appropriately. And we're getting up towards the bottom of the hour, and I'd like to discuss some other cases here, specifically one case I would like to discuss. That this is a witness that I was going to have on tonight, but he had some family conflicts, couldn't come on. This happened recently,